So the Switch 2 is obviously only about a month away from release, maybe like a month and a week, and Nintendo's shown off pretty much everything that the console has to offer. I feel like there's not really any, secret features anymore. Everybody knows that the C button is for game chat. We know about the camera, we know about the pricing, we know about the good and the bad. And Nintendo has shown off, obviously, Mario Kart World. They've shown off, like, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom running at 60 FPS, They've shown off Metroid Prime 4 in 120 FPS 4K. I think in the Direct they showed off Pokemon Legends EA running at much higher fidelity on the Switch. Odyssey, I'm pretty sure Mario Odyssey has a free upgrade now. I don't think that's been shown, but it has been confirmed. Fucking Game Builder Garage and ARMS have free upgrade packs. But I feel like there's one series that has been really, really silent on the Switch 2 so far, and it has me slightly concerned but also kind of excited, because it makes me feel like this is such a big franchise that Nintendo can't just drop it and go silent for the next console generation. So it makes me feel like they must be planning something big, and that's Splatoon. Now, to me, the two major franchises that stand out as not having really been talked about yet are Splatoon and Smash. But Smash Ultimate was a huge game and kind of confirmed to, at the very least, be Sakurai's last Smash game, if not the last Smash game. So if you think about the Switch 2 for a moment, I think there's a lot of possibilities it could offer to the Splatoon series in general. Obviously, you have 4K, that's not really a big one to me. I actually don't even have a 4K monitor or TV, and I don't really know how many people that do. I don't know many people. Maybe if you've a family sitting room, you have a nice big 4K TV in there, but I don't know many people that actually just have 4K monitors. But that's always obviously something that could happen. Something more important and more exciting to me is 120 FPS mode for a fast-paced shooter like Splatoon, and I feel like it's one of the more fast-paced Nintendo games. You have Mario Kart can be considered fast-paced, even though a lot of people are saying Mario Kart World looks kind of slow. That's because all the demo footage is being played in 100cc. But, maybe Smash Bros could be considered fast-paced, but Splatoon is a pretty fast-paced game. I play Splatoon and Smash each for well over 1,000 hours for both series. So I've played a lot of both of those games. And Splatoon's pretty fast-paced. 120 FPS could do huge amount for the series. I feel like that would just make the game feel so much smoother, feel so much nicer to play, and the Switch 2 probably has the hardware capability to do it. We know obviously games can run at 120 FPS, and Splatoon in general has been pretty well optimized, typically running just at a locked solid 60 FPS in any type of battle. I'm pretty sure even Splatoon 1 on the Wii U was locked 60, except for the lobby. I think it's 30 FPS in the lobby. But we could have 120 FPS battles, which would be super good for any sort of competitive play. The other thing, which is actually the whole reason I made this video, which is a way more exciting idea to me, and something that makes me even more confused as to why they didn't show it off, is mouse aiming. They've shown off the mouse aiming mode for Metroid Prime 4, and sure, that works really well and that makes sense, and it's a shooter game, so yeah, the mouse mode is really cool. The only other game that uses this, put the two Joy-Cons on their sides and use them like mice is the Dragon Drive game, I think it's called, and I haven't heard many places talking about that. It just seems to be this thing where it's oh, it's a little game. I don't even know how much it costs. It reminds me, not even in a good or a bad way, it just reminds me of Metroid Prime Blast Ball, I think. It was a free game that came out around the time Federation Force did. It just reminds me of that. A simple free kind of game. But I guess it was clearly developed to show off the mouse movement, using the Switch 2 Joy-Cons as a mouse. That, Metroid Prime 4, and Mario Party, which I really haven't heard that much about the mouse, using the mouse in that. But Splatoon it's just sitting there. It is begging to be used for a mouse aiming mode. That would be so perfect. You could use your left Joy-Con regularly, and you could use your right Joy-Con to aim and still press the trigger to shoot ink, whatever. That's just begging to be an option to happen. Splatoon already has pretty good controls, control options, in the sense that you can play with gyro, you can play without gyro, even though with gyro is just objectively better. You can play without gyro, you can fiddle with settings, you can make things more sensitive, less sensitive. And I just think the mouse aiming mode would be such a big thing for Splatoon, especially for competitive play, because a lot of the time people complain, and this is a totally valid complaint, and the Switch 2 won't fix this, is that if you're playing in handheld mode, obviously 90%, 99% of good Splatoon players use motion controls because it's just better. But if you're playing handheld mode, you obviously have to move the screen you're playing when you're aiming. So if you're holding your Switch 2 or Switch 1, you obviously have to move the screen, which can be a bit kind of motion sickness inducing, a bit weird. And mouse aiming, I feel like, would fix that. Like, you can detach your controllers and just play with like a Joy-Con grip, but that's not, a lot of people don't find that like a super comfortable way to play Splatoon. But if you had mouse aiming mode, I feel like that would be so good for Splatoon. Just the option to have it. I think Splatoon's always been a game that has like had good control options, and I think adding mouse aiming mode, if it's not in Splatoon 4, I will be really, really confused. Like, they have this feature on the Switch 2, which is like really the only new kind of hardware feature. Obviously, you have like better, you know, you have a better screen, and you have all the standard stuff you expect in an upgrade. But as far as Nintendo things and Nintendo twists go, the mouse is really the only thing. I guess you could consider game chat, but that's more a software feature. That's just like a thing built in. Yes, there's a physical button for it, but like, I'm not going to lose my mind over a button that brings you to a software feature. That's great, but I don't think that's not like a hardware quirk that they've added to the console. But the main thing that they've done is the Switch 2 mouse mode, and it feels like they just haven't really shown this off enough. I don't see many like videos or publications at all talking about Drag and Drive, and maybe that's just because I'm more interested in Mario Kart World and I watch more content, and so I got recommended more Mario Kart World content. But even like Prime 4, I'm really looking forward to Prime 4, and I don't see a ton of people talking about the mouse aiming mode. But if they came out with Splatoon 4 and they front and center went, you can use the Joy-Con as a mouse to aim, like put your Joy-Con on the table, here's how you aim. It just works too well to not be a thing. That's the biggest one to me. Obviously, there's some other stuff in that, like the built-in microphone on the Switch 2, godsend for Splatoon. The fucking everybody jokes about that image that Nintendo posted like 7 years ago when Splatoon 2 came out, about the little adapter you had to get to plug your Switch into like essentially an audio splitter, so that you could plug your phone in, voice chat, and then also plug your Switch into it and get the Switch audio, which was just such a cumbersome, needlessly stupid way of doing things. And now that we actually have a built-in microphone on the Switch 2, Splatoon's going to be so much more fun. I love playing Splatoon with my friends, but it's going to be so much better on the Switch 2 when you have actual built-in game chat. The other thing too is the camera. I think this could actually be used really well, because the main things Nintendo's shown off the camera for is obviously you can just like have game chat and have yourself, you know, be on screen. But also Mario Kart World has used it in that like it just shows a little icon above your like cart for other players, which is kind of cool. And then Mario Party just has like, it kind of puts you into the game, and that's also cool. But it could be genuinely super helpful for Splatoon, because you could have like an option that toggles on a little circle portrait of like your face, and that would show up wherever you are on the map. So say you open the map with the X button, we all know like the typical Splatoon map, and it shows up with your face above the your like inkling. So wherever you are on the map, a little like magnifying icon or whatever, a little circle icon that shows your face, and that makes it way easier to figure out who you're jumping to. Because a lot of the time I open my map, and the problem with Splatoon is if I'm playing with like two friends, if you've ever played Splatoon, you'll have, if you open the map, you'll have one player at the top, one player at the left, and one player at the right, and then your home spawn at the bottom corresponding to each D-pad button. But if you queue into a game, the players can often swap places. So like, you know, like your friend might be at the top, might be the top D-pad position for one game, and then they might be the right D-pad position in the next game. And that can get kind of confusing, because you have to waste time looking at their character and like reading their name and then jumping to them. Whereas if you had the camera show a little like icon on the map of who this person is, it's much more recognizable to be like, I know who that is, that's my friend. Like, I can recognize who they are. Now obviously that's just an optional feature that doesn't need to be turned on, but I think that would be something that's pretty cool. You could then see, and then you can also see like reactions to people getting like splatted and stuff like that. I think that would be really cool. One thing too that isn't necessarily a good feature of the Switch 2, but a reason that I feel like Splatoon lends itself well to the Switch 2 is the pricing of games. So obviously everybody's been complaining, including me, about the like 80, 90 euro Switch 2 game prices. But for Splatoon, every single Splatoon game so far, you pay like 50 or 60 euro to get in, and you get free updates for 2 years. And I'm not talking like free updates like, oh, here's like a new battle pass, pay a tenner to access it. It's, here's a free update, there are 6 new weapons, here's a new map every like few months. The way Splatoon 3 did it was a bit different in that every 3 months you get 2 new maps and like 6 or 7 new weapons, which is a decent amount of content. And I feel like paying 80 euros stings a lot less when the developers tell you, look, there's a lot of content at launch, but we are adding content for free over the next 2 years. Because if you buy Splatoon 3 at launch, and you wait like 2 years, then like you get drip feeded content through the 3 or 2 years. It's a good deal, and there's still a lot of content at launch. Like I don't think anyone was really complaining with the lack of content at Splatoon 3 at launch. I think people were with Splatoon 2. With Splatoon 3, I think they got the message, because you had like every weapon essentially in the game from launch, and then they added new weapons and new variants, which was a really good idea. If they did the same thing with Splatoon 4, I honestly see people having less of a backlash to like an 80 euro price. I still think 90 euro physical is kind of raising it a bit too fair, but if they made it the same price as like Donkey Kong Bonanza, I could totally see that. And I feel like people wouldn't be mad, because you're paying like 70 euro now, but you will get support for this game for the next 2 or 3 years. There's free events, there's the Splatfests, obviously everything like that. So I think it just lends itself well to like the pricing model they seem to be going with the Switch 2 in that direction anyway. One final thing actually, which is really, really annoying to me, because I don't want to buy a Switch 2 Pro controller because I have a perfectly fine Switch 1 Pro controller, but seeing those back paddles on the back really is making me just want to like just splurge 90 euro on it and just buy one. Like, I have a perfectly fine working Switch 1 Pro controller, but having those back paddles is so huge. I've been saying this for ages, but if you've ever played Splatoon 3, the Booyah Bomb, you need to press down on the D-pad to send Booyahs to your teammates so that they can charge up their like special weapon. And it's so annoying because the D-pad is just, you use the left stick to move, so you essentially have to take your thumb off the left stick and stop moving and just spam down on the D-pad. Whereas if you had those back paddles that are on the Switch 2 Pro controller, you can easily map the Booyah button to that and continue running and, you know, moving. Like, movement's a huge part of Splatoon. Any time that you have to stop movement is kind of boring. Like, obviously when you die, you're being punished for dying, but you respawn pretty quickly. But movement is such a key part of Splatoon that having to stop using the left stick and pressing down on the D-pad is so annoying that it's just like, people have went into the Switch 1 remapping and remapped it, but then obviously that remaps it for any action in the game. So having these paddles that just add extra button functionality that you can map anything to would be so useful for Splatoon, assuming the Booyah Bomb does come back. Even for like commands like you can press up on the D-pad to like tell your team to like come to you, or, you know, different things like that would just be so much more useful with the back paddles. And I think it's just crazy that Nintendo hasn't said anything about Splatoon yet. I think we are in a weird period where Splatoon 4 is in development, but it's way too early for them to announce development on Splatoon 4. It's too early for them to be like, here's your first look at Splatoon on the Switch 2, here's mouse mode, here's 120 FPS. But I think it's long enough into development that they don't want to bother going back to Splatoon 3 and like patching it to be like a Switch 2 upgrade version, like making it even a free update like to 120 FPS or adding mouse mode and stuff. Or obviously they don't want to add DLC because they already added DLC, and Splatoon 3 has been not dead, but it's been stopped getting content updates for a year or two now. So I feel like we're in a weird dead zone at the moment where Splatoon 4 hasn't been announced because it's not far enough in development. But it is far enough in development that no one on the dev team is thinking we need to go back to Splatoon 3 and fix this and add these things. Because otherwise, I think it's just crazy that Nintendo hasn't shown off any Splatoon content on the Switch 2. Because it's one of their most like profitable franchises at the moment. Everyone loves it pretty much. And everything about the Switch 2, like every new feature on the Switch 2, just screams, I want to work with Splatoon. Like, again, the microphone, just inherently works well with Splatoon. It's a team game. You play with 3 other people on your team. Microphone, obviously good for communicating. The Joy-Con mouse, it's a shooter. I'm not even going to say any more about that. 120 FPS, it is a third-person shooter game. It's a fast-paced third-person shooter game. That would be huge. And the price of the game, because it gets free content updates, I feel like people are less annoyed about that. I feel like if Mario Kart World in the Direct was like, we are going to give you a free track every 3 months, say, people will be less annoyed about the price because they know they're making an investment as opposed to pay €90 and now we're going to make you pay €60 or like €30 for another world with more tracks. Whereas Splatoon typically gives you free content over a year or 2 or 3 in some cases. So I think it's just crazy that there's been no Splatoon content on the Switch 2 so far. But it has me hopeful, because I think they are working on something, because it would be crazy for them not to. It just seems like such a perfect fit for the Switch 2, and the fact that they're not going back to Splatoon 3 and like patching it or something makes me think that they're definitely already working on Splatoon 4, but they have to be far enough into developing it to not think it's worth their time going back. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. Is there any games or series that I'm forgetting that just haven't been announced on the Switch 2? Any major ones, I should say. Smash is the only one I can think of, bar Splatoon. And again, like I said at the start of the video, Smash is like, I feel like Smash Ultimate was the last Smash, unless they go in a reboot direction, but Sakurai won't be making that because he's obviously working on Kirby Air Riders. So that's kind of, I'm not surprised Smash wasn't there. I didn't expect Smash to be there, but Splatoon feels like a key notable absence that I feel like will be addressed sometime early next year is what I want to say. I don't think this year, I think sometime early next year it might be announced. So if I'm forgetting any series, mention them in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. Am I like crazy for thinking that the Switch 2 and Splatoon is just like a really good match? Like everything about the console just screams this would work well with Splatoon. Or are there any other games or series I'm just completely forgetting about that Nintendo has like failed to mention on Switch 2? I can't think of any, because Mario Kart's been mentioned, you know, Smash hasn't, but I went over that. Zelda's been mentioned, obviously, like the upgrades. Metroid's been mentioned. Mario Kart, Mario Odyssey has a free upgrade pack. Donkey Kong, just like Donkey Kong, Zelda, Mario, Pokemon, they've all been mentioned. Splatoon's really the only big one that I can't think of. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to leave the video there for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. And we are about a month away from the Switch 2. A month and a week. So everybody's looking forward to that. I will see you in the next video. Ciao.